Very good morning, very good evening to all. Jai Shri Krishna Guruji. Welcome to the Shri Eknathi Bhagavad Satsang. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha, Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha, Om Shri Saraswatai Namaha, Om Shri Guru Dattatreya Namaha, Om Shri Mahalakshmi Namaha, Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurur Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. We'll be continuing Shri Eknathi Bhagavad Satsang, chapter 2, and we'll be continuing from verse 19 onwards. Out of them, there were 9 who were ruling the 9 continents all over the world, while 81 sons belonging to the caste of twice born were the exponents of tantric actions. 9 sons were appointed as the rulers of the 9 continents, and 81 sons became the inceptors, beginners of the path of karma. Thus 9 more who were remaining were the ornaments of good fortune itself, and were the place of resort of the wisdom of Brahman. Now listen to their qualities. 9 became rightly blessed sages. Having labored in the domain of self-knowledge, they propounded the highest truth, and living naked became adepts in spiritual knowledge. So that's verse 20. In the family of Rishabha, these 9 sons were the light of the family, light to the family. They were the embodiments of triple Brahman, that is Sachidanand, and were the torch-bearing guides to the seekers on the path towards total liberation. They had worked hard in the study of the self and had wiped out all bondage of karma or non-karma. They had become thus completely free of illusion of any kind, and remained outside the framework of 4 states, that is the ashramas like bachelorhood, family man, forest dweller, and sannyasi. They were masters of the proper use of words, example Vedas, etc., and also masters of spiritual enlightenment. They were very skillful in the art of teaching disciples and were extremely alert at all the times. Now here, this is the story being narrated by Narad Muni, I hope you remember, and we're talking about the family of Rishabha. They were personages of living spiritual knowledge, and their limbs were as if soft sprouts of self-knowledge. They were the full archetypes of knowledge and self-established forms of knowledge of Brahman. These Munis had sewn a single thread of 10 directions into an invisible cloth by which they covered their bodies, and that thread was of the wind, twisted to make a strong string, which they tied around their middle. Sky was their dress, and all the 9 had a cover of Chid Akash, or the energy. They had tied together the prana and apana into one string and had made a knot of it at the place of the navel. But suddenly the matter energy of knot of the jiva was loose, and all the 9 had their own sacred thread. So here is basically describing one who is enlightened. So what were they? They were the seekers of on the path of total liberation. They were the embodiments of the triple Brahman, that is Sachidanand. So they had the self-knowledge and they were enlightened beings. They were the masters of spiritual enlightenment. They had disciples. They were also teaching spirituality to their disciples. Thus they were ripe with the self-realization and the glory of the absolute Brahman. Now I will tell you the names of these 9 sages with regard to their greatness, which please listen. Now who are these sages? Sages are the knowledge base itself, and this is what you need to understand. So let us now learn who these sages are. So Eknathi Bhagavad chapter 2 verse 21. Kavi Hari Antariksha Prabuddha Pipalayana, also Avirotra, Drumila, who was very beautiful, then Chamasa, who was flawless, and Karabhajana. These are the 9 names by remembering which all the sins are destroyed. Such is their power. I will tell you about their highest state of mind, which is called Paramahamsa. By their existence only this earth has become pure. These 9 sages who are most sacred are worth worshipping. Now chapter 2 verse 22. They who saw this universe with existence and non-existence as its own nature, and which is the form of God only, themselves without any difference, traveled on this earth. These nine appear to be separate, but they are united as one in the divine body. They took at all other people, they look at all other people, either good or bad, and also at themselves as one totality. In them, there is no evil at all, and therefore, there is no scope to call them separately as saints because, being total spirituality itself, they have no difference of duality at all. When one realizes that God alone is everywhere, ruling everything, then the onlooker also does not remain separate, and therefore such a man looks upon all the beings lower and higher in himself as well as in God. So this is a very important verse. So what is he saying here? So Eknath Maharaj is saying that how you don't differentiate between anybody in this entire universe, whether they are low or high or knowledgeable or not knowledgeable, doesn't matter. The most important thing is you see God in everybody. See, what have they overcome? They don't have this most important thing called ego, identity with the body. Spirituality is about understanding I am the spirit and not the body. The most important aspect of spirituality is, see, the moment we say I know is the biggest blunder anybody on the path of spirituality will do. You know why? Because the moment you say I know what I am reading, I know I am understanding, I know, this I know will destroy the little knowledge that you have also. Ignorance will get covered because I cannot know. The attribution that you are doing I know is connected to the ego, and ego has no knowledge. I cannot know. Till you do not surrender, till you do not become, giving this identity of ego that I know, knowledge will not seep in. See, especially those who are on the path of spirituality and are the seekers, what happens is you might feel like you're understanding. Now, who's understanding? You're using your mind to understand. You keep saying, yeah, I know, but do you really know? Why is the knowledge not seeping in? Because of the identity with the body and the ego. And the problem is we do not want to break our mold of the tendencies and the nature. So when the guru teaches, see, for you to evolve in the path of spirituality, the first important being who you need in your world is the spiritual master, your guru. We are talking about the real master. We are not talking about any ordinary being. And when your guru teaches, what is the first thing that you actually come and get destroyed? The first thing which the guru destroys is the ego. I will give you my own story. When I came to my Gurudev and when I started on the journey, in the first 4 years, it was all about the destruction of this ego, which is the I. And believing that I know, I understand, I know I am capable, I understand this knowledge, I know this, this I know, and this attachment to the body was the first thing he does mincemeat of. Till you do not overcome this ego, not even an iota of knowledge will seep in. Trust me. First of all, you need to understand everything from him. You can't apply your ways, what you understand in the material world. Those things you can't bring here. And that is why my Gurudev will always say, can you please leave your ego, the mind, the arrogance, everything that I know out of my door when you enter. Because when you come to the Guru is who? The God Almighty. When you come to his abode or is in his ashraya or into his Gurukul, what are you coming here to? You're coming here to learn. So kindly can you refrain from saying I know? And just shaking head doesn't mean you understand. Yeah, you acknowledge, yes, what he's saying is right. Why is it not imbibing inside of you? You should understand. Ask a question to yourself. Why is the knowledge not seeping in? Why am I not able to absorb? So the first is the Guru destroys this ego. For the first 4 years, I know he did Bhagavad Gita, he did all the scriptures with me. Nothing seeped in because this thing, till that ego doesn't get crushed, till you don't become humble, till you don't become subservient to the Gurudev, till your master, to your preceptor, till you do not surrender, knowledge does not absorb. Because you are keeping the ignorance, the layers of ignorance is so strong. First, this I has to go. Meaning it doesn't eradicate, it doesn't leave completely, but for the knowledge to seep in, it has to be destroyed in a certain manner. But what happens to the human being, see, they're just seeker. You're only an aspirant. When you come, when your guru teaches you all that, the first thing the aspirant does is they start arguing. They try to defend why their point is correct, why the guru has to listen to you. See, you have come to learn here. The guru is not interested in your nonsense. He is not interested in you giving him justification. He is neither interested in what you think or don't think also. You need to first shut your mouth up and listen to him. Stop giving your side of the story. See, many a time the guru, they understand the ignorance level of the person. So they are just going to nod their head. Doesn't mean anything at all. Till you do not get down off your high horse sitting there, the two kind of ego which is very predominant in an aspirant. One is an inflated ego and the next one is the deflated ego. And when you have this two ego, either you, and the third one is a different thing, martyrdom. So there are multiple levels of egos also. So you operate constantly on either of this. See, when he's telling you to change certain things, he's telling you this is not the way to understand. See, when we come to the master, we have to clean ourselves. That the purification, what has to happen? All that you have learned until then doesn't stand valid in his Gurukul. In his school, doesn't stand valid. Now he is going to teach you everything. But if you are not going to learn and absorb, knowledge is not going to enter. My Guruji will always say, to everybody he'll say, if you're sitting in my class, just nodding head doesn't mean a damn thing. Yeah, grace is there, you're listening little bit. Like today now, some people might be listening to this satsang. What happens? Some God's word is going into our being. The little bit of sins will, reduce for all the sins that we have committed in our previous lives and we are born in this life. Some little amount of them will reduce. Some little grace will dawn. Beyond that, nothing is going to happen in your life. So this is a very important lesson. So most important is stop defending, stop giving your reason, stop trying to say things. If the more you say, the more backward you go. And this is the truth. The reason I'm emphasizing here is because no matter what scripture you do, not an iota of knowledge will enter till you do not surrender, give up your ego. Then, so what is being said here? So, most important, now he's telling there's no difference. So you have to see God in everything, and this non-duality is what you have to give up, which is the identity that I am the body and somebody is different and all that. So you need to develop, this is the highest level we are talking about, where you're able to see God in every living being, everybody, and there is no discrimination that is done. Then, when one realizes that God alone is everywhere, ruling everything, then the onlooker also does not remain separate, and therefore such a man looks upon all the beings lower and higher in himself as well as in God. Even the act of looking is not different from the onlooker. Such is the state of Paramahamsa, where to be, not to be, coming and going are all swallowed up. In this state, these 9 sages roam freely in this world. So chapter 2, verse 23. They go wherever they like, as their path is unobstructed. They freely roam over the regions of gods, siddhas, sadhyas, gandharvas, yakshas, men, kinnaras, nagas, monks, charanas, bhutnathas, naths, vidyadharas, brahmins, and kamadhenus, divine cows, and without attachment to any place. This is very beautiful. So let us understand. They roam about freely, without any desire, throughout the Vaikunta, Kailash, the places of gods and siddhas, adepts, and the 7 nether worlds, and the 14 universes. So we read the names of the what are the different things? The Vaikunta, Kailasha, the places of gods and siddhas, adepts, and the 7 nether worlds, and the 14 universes. They roam about freely. Why? What is the one reason? Without any desire. The most important thing, they don't have any desire. Why does a man suffer today? All his suffering, the root cause of all miseries are your desires. And this is the first thing you need to destroy in your life. Even one desire, finish, you're gone. And what is the next word? So one is without any desires. And what did we learn in the verse? Without attachment to any place. You know, the three important things in our world which we are so attached to: people, number one; places, number two; and the third thing is things, the possessions in our life. These three things destroy our spiritual progress. Come what may. You might try as much as you want. Oh, say, I don't have desire. You know, people will actually fool themselves when they say, oh, no, I am not greedy. I don't have any desire. I am the greatest thing on planet Earth. Then why that is the spiritual knowledge doesn't enter you? Why is that there is no seepage? See, the more you try to say, I don't have this, I don't have that, you don't understand how much you are full of it. Just by saying that doesn't change anything. There is not a single human being on this planet Earth who is not without any desire or attachment. Even the little thing to anything is very dangerous. Didn't we learn the whole beginning of this lesson? King Bharat, like Bharata himself, just for that one little small attachment, he lost everything, all his penance, all the tapascharya that he had done for so many years. And please understand, King Bharata is very great. He was a righteous king. He followed the codes of conduct, everything he did so perfectly. And what happened? That little one desire, that attachment, not even, he didn't have any desire. That was the whole point. He gave up his kingdom. He gave up the enjoyment. He did everything that was so perfect. But that one little thing, what was that? That little attachment cost him. And not to his own family also. To whom? A deer. That little thing, finish. And here we are talking about petty human beings. We're talking about human beings who are head to toe full of desires, whether you like it or not. See, truth is bitter. Nobody will want to acknowledge because they think they are very good. Who's this? They think. Who's thinking? Mind. You are living in a delusion based on what your mind has told you. I am very good. I don't have greed. I don't have desire. There is not a single human being who doesn't have desire, you can say. Everybody has desire of some kind of the other. These are God's words. This is scripture we are talking. We are not talking some ordinary thing. So stop fooling yourself. And even if you say, does it mean that we even accept? We just laugh at people like this when they talk such nonsense. Because you talk utter dime a dozen nonsense based on your mind's viewpoint. And you know who's your best friend? Your best friend is your mind, who's telling you all sorts of nonsensical things. It keeps feeding you, which is pertaining only to your ego. How great you are, how good you are. You need to get out of this delusion. See, when you want to learn spirituality, first give up this ego. Knowledge will only come in when you learn to shut your mouth and listen. And next is most important, stop talking, stop defending, stop giving reasons, and then start doing something in life. Till that time, the S of spiritual also will not enter you. This is the truth. So what is the most important thing? Sadhana. Doing is a must. Until you don't put effort, nothing is going to come. Because this is a very important lesson for us to understand. So, these have no attachment in their souls. What is the first thing again? These have no attachment in their souls. Therefore, they are not stopped anywhere by merely wishing they can travel throughout the world in their most happy and desireless state. So, verse 24. Chapter 2, verse 24. Once they, by casual turn of events, went to the place of Yajna of Ajanabha. What is this? Okay, Ajanabha, the king Nimi, in which Yajna many sages had assembled. They find a straight, simple way where even mind cannot enter. With such a power, they move through the worlds. Once they came on this earth, in their casual journey, now is a story being told. While traveling on the face of this vast earth, they came to the region called Ajnanabaha, where the king Videha was performing a great sacrifice and many great sages had gathered. The pit of sacrifice was properly made according to standard measurements, and the mandapa canopy was also constructed properly. The preparations and the articles required were of best qualities. Then the Shruk, Shruva and the three sadhanas, the Paristarnas, the unbroken pouring of ghee, etc., were properly maintained, and groups of sages were offering oblations in the fire pit. When the sacrifice was completed and the final oblation was given to the fire, people saw these 9 sages with brilliant bodies approaching the place of sacrifice. Chapter 2, verse 25. O king, looking at these high souls, Bhagavatas, as brilliant as the sun, all of those present with the king, the various fires the Brahmins got up. How can we describe the heavenly brilliance of those 9 sages, whose hearts could contain with love that Lord Sri Krishna, in whose nails the brilliance of sun became pale? How beautifully described. Actually, the sun experienced that he could not look at them because of their shining bodies. So what is it being taught here? That the sages are the greatest devotees of the Lord, because Lord Sri Krishna, whose hearts contained the love of Lord Sri Krishna, was shining brighter than the sun also. The sun also could not look at them. That is the kind of love Lord Sri Krishna is. All the 9 were by their effulgent bodies giving adoration to the adoration itself. They were the essence of spirit. All the 9 could be said to be the glory of godhood, the decoration of devotion, and the living statues of ninefold worship of God. They were as if ornaments of the 9 continents of the earth, or the intrinsic value of 9 jewels embodied, and the essence of 9 types of nidhis, that is treasures. They appeared as if 9 alternative images of Narayana manifest by their own will, or 9 Narasimhas, that is Narasimhas, present in all their brilliance. In the pit of sacrifice, the 3 fires, namely the Dakshin Agni, the Grahapatya, and Ahamvaniya, who were invoked, were present in person. All of them got up as soon as these 9 sages came there. Even the fires, all the 3 Agnis which is being mentioned, they all stood up to these sages. What does it mean? Respect. Most important is, how do we adore, how do we respect when the divine master himself is there? Today people don't know how to respect. They don't know how to respect elders. Forget about God. God though doesn't exist in anybody's world at all. They live like a pig, in the pigsty. That is the life of a human being today. They don't know what it is to respect. Nobody has taught them. Their elders the worst. And their forefathers also the worst. Nobody has followed what our scriptures are teaching. You know why? Because we never bothered to learn this. We have never bothered to understand how do you conduct yourself in this world. How to live in a God-pleasing way. How do you behave? All these etiquette, this culture, tradition, nothing is being taught. So what does the Guru teach? He first makes you into a human being. A good human being. Divinity comes far later, much later. First you have to become a good human being. That itself doesn't work in this world. Then all of them got up as soon as these 9 sages came there. They were visible to the sages only. Others did not see them. So what does it mean? You need the grace of the God, the Guru, the divinity, the sages themselves. Still your heart is not pure. Even if the master is there, he will only appear to you as an ordinary human being. You cannot get the grace to even get that little experience, the glimpse of him. Because you are not purified. Your heart is still full of all the Shadripus. And you're living in the identity with your mind and body. You can't get that experience. Because till you don't understand what it means to surrender, what it means to overcome the purification, the purification process you have to go through, overcome your mind, body, senses, the 3 gunas, and transcend all of those, that grace doesn't dawn in. It can be anybody. Anybody means what? Anybody. You have to do the sadhana. You have to have it in you that I need to change. See, God helps those who help themselves. Without self-effort, you can't even move even 1 inch in spirituality. You can't evolve. This is the Param Satya. This is the truth of it. Then, when these shining personalities were seen, Ritvija and Acharya got up. The King Janak ran forward and hastened to welcome them with great pleasure. He prostrated at their feet, and by removing his crown from his head, bowed with great regard to their feet. and led them into the mandap. How beautiful. King Janak and everybody, how did they welcome? He removed the most important thing of a king is what? His crown. That itself he removed. What does it mean? In front of the divinity, the sages and the saints, you need to become very humble. You have to show your humility, not be talking like a nonsensical, uncouth person in life. You need to have the decorum to behavior, how you speak in front of them, how you behave and conduct yourself in front of these great masters. And who is this? King Janak. He removes the crown, that is called the respect. It's a very important character, that shows King Janak how humble he is. He's demonstrating the humility, how to pay respect when these great masters are there. Today, do you see how you all behave? You must ask yourself, will you even evolve? Because the basic etiquette of behavior itself is not there. And what does he do? First, the moment they come in, prostrate at the feet. It's a very important sign. In our culture, in Indian, at least in our Hindu dharma, we always touch the feet of our elders, no matter what they are. We will always bow down. No matter where you go, we always have to give that respect. And also what we have been taught is to see God in everything. And that's a very important culture. Do you think today anybody is following it? They don't even know how to bow down and touch the feet. They don't know how to speak in a nice language, a refined language. People speak whichever way they feel like. People behave however they feel like. No manners is being taught today. Respect is not even there. Forget respect. People don't know, if you even make a mistake, you don't know how to seek forgiveness. Oh, we think, oh, it's okay, it's fine. Is this what you are being taught? Here, King Janak is giving an example how you need to behave. What is it being said? He prostrated at their feet and by removing his crown from his head, bowed with great regard to their feet. Everything is given by the Lord Almighty. So we need to pay respect by offering it at his feet. The crown represents the king. And what is he saying? He's putting it. That's called like that. It's a mark of a pride of a king. And he puts that means what? I am humble. I am at your feet. I am your servant. Everything belongs to you. The most important thing here is being taught. King Janak, how do you be a great being? That's called humility. It's called, offering the way you respect this divinity when they come. And then what is being said? And led them into the mandap and leading them, taking them inside and, making them seated, honoring them matters the most. Next, chapter 2, verse 26. Knowing them to be great devotees of Narayana. Who are the sages and the saints? They are the great devotees of the Narayana. Means what? The Guru is the doorway to God. The Guru himself is Lord Sri Krishna Bhagavan, Lord Narayana himself. The sages and the saints are the devotees of the Lord in whom the divine Lord dwells. So when these come, what do we say? The God himself has incarnated, and it is very important to offer them that kind of respect and honoring them. Knowing them to be the great devotees of Narayana, the king Nimi was much delighted to see them. When they were seated, he duly worshipped them as they deserved such a worship. What is he saying? Duly worshipped them as they deserved such a worship. Knowing them to be devoted to God, the king Janaka felt great respect and joy. He arranged to personally facilitate them. The king himself will come and do things. He's not going to tell his servants to do it. The king himself has to serve the sages and the saints. That is the most important thing. You think the king doesn't have all this court. He has a plethora of saints. The servants around him. Everybody's waiting to serve the king. But he himself gets up and does service to the saints, the sages and the saints. That is what is very important. And Janak, why Janak? Why Nimi? They're all the great kings. These are all our tradition and culture, how to respect people in this world. And today, none of this is followed by us. Why? Oh, we have Western adaptation. Our culture is completely changed. We don't even have to follow. We don't touch the elders' feet. We don't have to. Why? That's not taught. That is not in our culture. Oh, we'll do. Hey, hey, dude, what is it? Yeah. We have adapted all the nice things. That is what we have become. With great faith, he washed their feet. What is the first thing you need to do? The lotus feet of the sages and saints rest what? Knowledge, their knowledge base. You know, what is the greatness of this feat? It is only when we become humble. You know, actually, it's a very beautiful thing. When you touch the feet of these great masters, the great saints, you know what happens? We pass on. Do you even know ever when you bow down and touch their feet, we actually pass on all our karmas unto their feet. They accept. They accept all everything that we have. And you know what? They bless us, and their feet bears the weight of lot of things. Their feet is the base of the knowledge. Wherever that feet, you know, they touch, they turn that place into something most beautiful. They purify that place, that being and everything. You don't know the greatness of this feet. Even just having the grace to touch that feet, you don't know how much of, you know, merit you must have earned in some other life. It is not so easy. It's such a difficult thing to get to touch that lotus feet. And it's only because of the grace of these sages and saints that we will be able to get to do that. It is not you can come to him. It is the Guru who brings you to them, or here they are coming on their own. You can't tell, oh, please come, or I want to come and all. It is not you. This I cannot do anything. Please understand something. It is only when the God himself, the Guru himself decides and gives you, grants you the grace, that he brings you to him out of his compassion and mercy on you. Not anything, any otherwise. But from then what happens? You have to follow the path of spirituality. You have to follow the ways, how to conduct. You have to learn everything from scratch. Not go on talking about what you know and what you don't know, and this is what it is and that is what. Nobody is interested in what you know and what you come with. Nobody cares. And don't waste somebody else's time talking, trying to defend and all that. This is one thing everybody does. And here we are learning how even the great kings, you know, played their part. And what does he say then? And by using incense lamp, sandalwood paste, flowers, etc., ceremoniously performed their puja, and with honey and other auspicious materials. So what does it mean? How do you worship that lotus feet? It is not just ordinary feet. It is a lotus feet. How do you worship it? How do you revere it? It's very, very important. Today, anybody does it? And do you even have such a divine master in your world? And even if it is there, please understand, nobody can even do it. Everybody doesn't have touch, you know, everybody doesn't have the permission to do this. You know why? Because you have to first evolve to that level. It is not so easy to touch his feet. You have to be qualified. You need to have that level of purification in your heart. Everybody cannot do the Paduka Puja of the Guru unless and until he gives you that permission. It's not such a small thing. See, nobody understands the intricacies of what is there in this. Why? And the humility. The most important thing is, how do you become so humble? You have to surrender your ego, you know, your arrogance, all your everything, the identity. I know all that thing at his feet. You have to first, the word is humility. You have to learn to shut your mouth and learn. My Guruji will tell me also the same thing. Rajma, first learn. It's a very important thing. Don't talk too much. Talking is not going to take you anywhere. And this is the truth for anybody. You can be even the divine Lord Almighty also. That when you take a body and you have to go through the journey, you have to follow these dictats. You have to follow the code of conduct. There are rules and regulations. If you are too very serious about evolving, see, there are a lot of people who might not be serious. Everybody has an think why they want to. Some people come and figure out, oh, do I even want to be in this or not? Everybody is not interested in getting God realization. And for that, this is very tough. The same scripture, as we evolve, Krishna Bhagavan is going to tell how much of perfection you need to have in even, you know, getting closer to him. It is not such an easy thing. The level of purity, the level of perfection that you have to keep striving to achieve. See, spirituality is all about arduous effort, not hardly putting, not hard. It's not hardly working, it is hard working. Arduous effort is required. Without that, you can't evolve. So, let's continue. Chapter 2, verse 27. The king Nimi, greatly pleased to see them, bent low with humility, and to them, the 9 sages who shine in their own light like the sons of Brahma, he put the question as follows. They were shining in their own light. Their bodies were the essence of spiritual wisdom. They were the knowledge incarnate, their knowledge base. Radiating with their own aura. They come with that power of knowledge. They are spiritual, that, you know, they are the spiritual wisdom. And The spiritual wisdom in their heart was as if ripened and became a light unto themselves. Their bodies were not having any other ornaments. Such ornaments as crown, earrings, or bracelets may be put on the body of a stupid person. What is the word here? Stupid person. But they cannot hide his foolishness, which is quite evident in spite of all decorations. How beautifully said. This is a very important verse. We should understand. What is he saying? Such ornaments, whatever you put, no, you decor. Oh, we wear this earring, necklace, we wear nice sari, whatever, garments. We do all those things. And crown, earrings, or bracelets may be put on the body of a stupid person. Why? Because people give importance to the body and they think that decorating themselves like this and being a fake is what will give them spirituality. But they cannot hide his foolishness. You can decorate whatever you want. What is Eknath Maharaj saying? But you can't hide your foolishness. You're a fool, he's calling you. A stupid person and a fool. Which is quite evident in spite of all decorations. Which is so obvious. You think wearing all this will give you some knowledge, is it? Nothing you will get. They were complete with the experience of Brahman, who the sages and the saints, which was very evident in their bodies and limbs also. You know what? The most beautiful ornament which you can don is your inner beauty. It is not that you have to paint your face. It is the purity of our heart will reflect glow. That is what he's talking about. Your body will radiate. It will glow that beauty of your inner purity of your heart. Because who is residing there? The love of Sri Krishna Bhagavan. That is the ornaments you need to have. Not your ego, your arrogance, all the chadripus, and think like, oh, I know, I'm this. Nothing you will get. And you can wear whatever you want. And what is he king? You are decorating the body, but your innermost being is dark. It is ignorance, filled with darkness. It has all sorts of evil in it. First, destruction of the Shadripus is important. How? Purification of your heart is what is required. And the beauty that radiates is that purity. As you become pure, you don't need to even paint your face and do anything. That beauty glows. That is called the divine body. And who are the sages? The spiritual wisdom is radiating. They are not a body as such. Because they're completely in that enlightenment of the divine Lord. They are Sachidanand themselves. Truth, knowledge, and bliss. So the light which radiates, their beauty is so beautiful. Why? Because they're absolutely pure in their heart. They have nothing to hide. They are the epitome of everything that exists. So how can we even compare? So first you have to go through this journey, the process of purification of your heart, purification of your mind, surrender to the Guru's lotus feet. And only then, with his grace, will that knowledge, little, like a drop, it will open. And that also depends on your effort. So, what was it? Their knowledge was there. These sages were saturated knowledge of Brahman, were not like others. Their knowledge was their ornament. This is exactly what I was saying. And they had not any other ornaments. So what is the most important ornament they had? Knowledge, the spiritual wisdom as their ornament. Then they were complete with the experience of Brahman, which was very evident in their bodies and limbs also. The inner peace was their decoration. What were there? See, when you look at these great masters, what happens to you? You'll feel some kind of a calmness, some kind of love surging in you. Why does that attraction and everything happens? Because of this. The inner peace was their decoration. From them, crown or bracelet were of no account. For them, crown or bracelet were of no account. They don't care in all these, Vesha, Bhushas and all, Did you see the material world? There are a lot of people who decorate themselves. They have some fancy garments they wear. They wear all sorts of nonsensical things. A real master, a real sage and saint will not do any of these things. He's not even going to show his existence to people. Only very select few. And that also you can't know him so easily. What you'll still encounter is his Maya. Because till your heart is not purified, no way can you get to see him. No way can you get to experience him. As is your faith, so are your experiences. It also depends on your faith. How much faith do you have? It's not 99.99%. It is 100%. It is absolute faith. So nothing can be understood until then. And most important, don't try to, decorate this body, paint your face and all. You know what? The most beautiful thing you need to do is becoming purer in your being, purer in your heart and mind. That is what will make you very beautiful. That is the ornament you got to wear. And then that glow will be on your face. And that understanding only will dawn once you evolve, not until then. It is not about, oh, I am fat, I am thin, I am this, I am that. Nothing that you associate to your body is even valid. They don't care about the body. It is the purity of your heart that the God and the Guru are interested in seeing. It's not how you look or how you behave, what you eat, what you don't. It doesn't matter. None of this thing matter. Isn't it very beautifully said? For them, crown or bracelet were of no account. It is the inner peace was their decoration. So earlier, when Sanaka and others were praised, when these were compared with them, it could not be decided who were more brilliant, and nobody, what is it? Nobody could identify these sages as separate. Their life was equal, their status was equal, their peace was equal. There was absolutely no difference in them. These were also brothers like Sanaka and others. Their knowledge, their behavior, most important, underline these words, their knowledge, their behavior, their manners. You know what is the most important? Manners, their behavior. How do you conduct yourself in presence of the Lord Almighty? Not behaving uncouth. Behavior is a very important aspect, and in this scripture, as we evolve, Eknath Maharaj is going to teach the code of conduct. You're going to learn how do you behave in front of the divine Lord, or how do you behave in this world. It's called Bhagavata, it's called the way of life, which nobody has taught you. So behavior, their manners and their bearing were all just like Sanaka and others. There was no difference at all. They were 4 and these were 9. But the knowledge of Brahman was equal in all. Their inner peace was also similar, which fact the King Janaka fully understood. Who understood? King Janaka. Then, thus seeing their highest inner state, the king was very glad, and with all humility. And the word, humility, you should actually write it in you. Till you don't become humble, don't even bother about talking of spirituality or even saying I am in spiritual. Don't condemn your guru. I have a very beautiful thing. Every single day when I start my satsang, I read something very beautiful here. Just looking at you, the world should understand the divinity of your guru. I feel very sad for my Gurudev. You know why? Because when somebody looks at the disciple, I don't know what will the world say. Because it's very sad when the Lord Almighty himself is coming and teaching us and we don't change, we behave uncouth. What is the world going to say? They will not tell about you. They will say, what kind of a guru did you have? Didn't he teach you? This is what the world will talk. It's so how we evolve, how we behave directly reflects on the guru, provided, okay, there is a disclaimer here, provided you want to be 100% in spiritual, you want to really attain God realization, and you really want to make this your life goal, then it is valid. Otherwise, like your every other onlook, people who come, they just want to learn, they want to get certain things, and yeah, that much you can be there, doesn't matter. But these words are very important. Just looking at you, the world should understand the divinity of your guru. So we have to imbibe his knowledge, the lesson that he's giving us, and behave the way our guru has taught us. Otherwise, it is an insult for all his effort. Then, thus seeing their highest inner state, the king was very glad, and with all humility, he requested them in a very soft tone. So with that, we will stop here and continue from verse 28 in our satsang tomorrow. Thank you for joining Sri Ekanathi Bhagavad Satsang. Have a good day and good evening to you all. God bless.
Recording stopped.
Thank you, Rajma.
Welcome.